What's the consequence? Folks, if you skip looking at the property, if you don't do an inspection and you decide to buy blind, in other words, you haven't walked on the property, well, I'm going to tell you something. You're probably going to lose your assets. That's right. You're going to not only lose your assets, but you'll probably lose your family and your friends' respect because people don't want to be doing business with a risk taker. That's way too high a risk to take. You want to be an investor? That means you inspect the property.
Welcome, everybody. This is Ted Thomas, the Tax Lien Certificate and Tax Deed Authority. And today, Ted is going to be discussing the 5 safe strategies for investing in tax delinquent real estate.
Number 1, thorough research, due diligence. Number 2, property inspection. Number 3, money management. Number 4, have an exit strategy. Number 5, education.
Number 1, thorough research and due diligence. Ted, what should your main goal be when you're conducting due diligence on a property?
Well, you want to make serious money? This is a way to make serious money, but you're not going to do that unless you start looking at the property, okay? Now, auctions are serious business. You must do your due diligence. You must look at that property, okay? Now, I didn't make the rules. The legislature of the state makes the rules, and they say everybody's going to pay tax. It's mandated. So they push those rules down to the local county, the treasurer, and the tax collector. They enforce those rules, all right? When they enforce the rules, they want to get rid of the property. They don't want the property. So they're going to sell these properties for 10 and 20 cents on the dollar. And they're going to wipe out, they're going to extinguish the deed of trust loan and the mortgage. So think about that. Now, rule number 1, you're going to check the property, but you also ought to check the liens, all right? The municipal liens do not leave the property. The federal liens do not leave the property. So let me say it this way. Everybody jokes and says, caveat emptor. What does that mean? Well, it's a Latin phrase. It means let the buyer beware. So I'll say it again. You're buying as is, caveat emptor. Buyer beware. There could be problems with the property. All right, the government auctions the properties as is. They don't know the conditions of the property. They didn't own the property. They just confiscated the property because the taxes weren't paid. So what do you have to know? You have to know CYA, cover your assets. Okay, that's your number 1 priority if you're going to a tax defaulted auction. Look at that structure. Know what the condition is. Know what the title condition is.
Number 2, property inspection. Ted, can you explain what potential issues or risks are there if I skip this really important step of inspecting a property?
You must inspect the property. Some of the properties are junk, but all tax defaulted property are used and abused. Okay, that means if it's a little rough looking on the outside, it's probably going to be rough looking on the inside. Someone's going to have to fix that. Have you checked the roof? Have you checked the siding? Have you checked anything about the property? Okay, if the structure isn't good, just keep on moving. Now, paint is easy to fix. Okay, what if you had to fix concrete? That means you're going to have to dig it up and replace it. All right, so you need to do your due diligence. That means boots on, walking on that ground. So if you have inspected the property, know its condition. Remember, repairs are easy to make, but what if you haven't checked the neighborhood? You can repair any property. If you got enough money, you can repair it, but you can't fix a neighborhood.
Safe strategy number 3, money management. Can you share some tips on setting a budget for a tax delinquent auction, especially for somebody who's new to this whole investment arena, Ted?
Folks, tax lien investing, tax deed investing, you invest, there can be consequences. If you run out of money, you're the one that's going to be in default. So you need to estimate your cost of repair and your cost of holding and your cost of selling. Okay, money brings along with it risk, okay? It's very hard to stay within a budget because you're going to try to fix this property and make it nice the way you want it. Well, if you're going to buy and sell real estate, you have to make it the way other people want it. If you don't know what it costs to fix a kitchen, I'll tell you right now, it's the most expensive room in the house to fix. What about the bathroom? Same way. If you had to fix a roof, well, that could be a problem to re-roof it. But what if the structure is bad? What if it has a flooded basement? All right, you need to know what the expenses are and what it's going to cost to do it. So you don't want to be running out of money. So you got to do your due diligence and estimate what all these things are going to be. If you don't know what the estimate to fix the property is, you don't want to be bid. You don't want to be bidding at one of these auctions because you could be the one that ends up in a bankruptcy.
Number 4, having an exit strategy. How does having a well-defined exit strategy contribute to the safety of investing in tax delinquent property?
Well, most people, they don't have any exit strategy in their mind. What they do is they buy it and they pray that they're going to be able to sell it. Well, prayer is not a good business strategy. You need to know what you're going to be able to sell that property. If you haven't got an exit strategy, that's a huge mistake. You don't want to buy a property without looking at it. You don't want to buy a property unless you've looked at the neighborhood, and you don't want to buy a property unless you have an exit strategy to sell it. Very few people have any idea of what it costs to sell a property. I can tell you right now, it costs a few bucks to sell a property. What will that do? What if you had this much profit? Selling the property could use up a lot of that margin very quickly. What do I mean by that? There's a broker to pay. There's going to be a title company to pay. There's going to be title insurance to pay. What about all those things? What about the punch list that the new buyer wants you to fix all these little things? All that's going to cost you money at sale. It could easily cost 10% of the selling price of the property to sell the property. That could use up your property margin. You don't want to do anything unless you can estimate your prices before you try to sell. Everybody's interested in buying, but most people haven't thought about selling. It's important that you understand the comparable values of the neighborhood before you buy, because you're going to have to sell at that value maximum. But what if you could get below that value? Then you could sell quickly. You need to determine all that before you make your bid.
Number 5, education. With your 30 plus years of experience in this field, Ted, how has ongoing education helped you and others make better decisions and handle the challenges of tax delinquent real estate investments?
Hey folks, full disclosure, I've been teaching people for 30 years how to avoid big mistakes at auctions. I teach them how to make money. But you know, one of the founding fathers was named Benjamin Franklin. He made a very short quote. The very short quote was, having knowledge is important. It pays high interest. Having knowledge is important. It pays high interest. Learn how to do this before you spend your money. Now, Warren Buffett is one of the greatest stock market investors of all time. He's still alive. He didn't make his million until he was 60 years old. He's about 85 plus now. And guess what? He simply said, education eliminates risk. What more can I tell you, folks? You want to make sure that you either get a coach. What a coach will do is they'll not only accelerate your learning, but what else can they do? They can help you through the step-by-step process of learning and not wasting time. Now, a lot of people come to me and say, Ted, you learned it. I can learn it too. Absolutely. Everyone that's watching me can learn it. It's going to take you 3 or 4 years to do it. If you make one big mistake, that's going to be a lot more than paying a coach.
Hey, if any of you have any questions for Ted, leave it in the comment section below. You will get an answer. And if you like this video, be sure to like it and maybe even subscribe to the channel. You know, Ted, it would be nice if there was a list of where all these auctions are happening. What can you share with us about that?
Okay, well, lists are available, folks, and there's lots of lists. We can help you get a list, first of all, of just one county. We can help you get lists of all the counties in the state that are selling. We can get you a list of counties across the United States so that you can look at the list and say, here's what the tax assessed value is. Here's how much they're asking, 10 or 20 cents on the dollar. And you can decide, is there enough margin in a property before you do any research at all? So you want to get the list and learn how to do that. I also have an auction calendar. You can go below me and learn about the auction calendar, and that'll just show you the whole United States electronically. So I'm going to wrap this up now. Folks, real estate investment requires dedication, it requires market savvy, and it requires a ton of patience. So keep in mind, when you're purchasing tax defaulted property, you can't see the plumbing, you can't see the electrical, you don't know if they had leaks, you don't know if there's challenges in the basement. Do your due diligence. Look at the properties as best you can. Most of the cases you won't be able to get in the property, so don't overbid. Make sure you leave enough money in your margin so that you can do those repairs that you can't see. I'm Ted Thomas.